Welcome to Rossifari Revisited. Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hello, 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 and welcome to a special episode of the Rossifari podcast. So, no new content today, friends. So if you've listened to them all, you might have heard this one before. But it has come to my attention lately that a lot of new fans and a lot of new listeners don't go back into the archives too much and don't check out a lot of the old content. And, I get it. You're missing out on a lot of good stuff, but there are also a lot of episodes. So every once in a while, I'm going to bring you an old episode that is relevant to what is going on in the world right now, and that way you can listen to it. Or not. Your call. I'm not the boss of you. Am I? I should be your boss. Maybe I'll start a new podcast where I just boss you around. No, that's weird. This is weird. This has gone off the rails already. I apologize for that. But hey, it's a bonus episode. I can be extra weird. Anyway, so the reason I'm putting this out there is that this week is Walrus Awareness Week. Yay! And being aware of walruses is really cool. Also, if you're caught up on zoo news, you know that I frequently say Walrus Awareness Week when I'm trying to say Walrus Awareness Week. So I thought if I did an episode where I say Walrus Awareness Week a bunch of times, then I would not only get to put out content for Walrus Awareness Week, but also I would break the habit of not properly saying Walrus Awareness Week. Walrus Awareness Week. Yay! So anyway, y'all, this is a replay of my interview with Erika Allen at the Indianapolis Zoo, where I first met her, and her walruses that she takes care of. I'm guessing you guessed that from the sheer number of times that I said Walrus Awareness Week. Oh man, I gotta tell you, in the last year and a half, I have met so many amazing, unique, incredible species, so many animals that I never thought I'd get to have an experience with. Without a doubt, one of the moments that stands out the most is when I got to meet and interact with Ginger and Aku, the walruses at the Indianapolis Zoo. This one blew my mind, y'all. And you'll get to hear about them and learn from Erika, and also hear me interacting with them, and you'll get to hear from them, which is so cool. And I love sharing this. So if you've listened, I don't know, this is one of my favorites. You might want to listen again. And if you haven't, then you're going to get to enjoy a bonus episode here. So all the normal stuff applies. Make sure you're following along. Hit subscribe. Make sure you're hitting us up on social media at Rossifari on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Rossifari Pod on TikTok. You can support the pod by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. And there's also Rossifari.com for all of your podcast website-related needs. So here's an ad. Today's episode is brought to you by Daydreamer Studios. Do you have stories and expertise to share with the world? Have you ever thought about starting your own podcasts? There's no better time to start than now with the help of a trusted production partner. Daydreamer Studios is a full-service production company that takes all the stress off your plate. You can focus on creating engaging content while they focus on recording, editing, audio engineering, hosting, and publishing on 22 platforms. Log into the advanced remote system with one click, and the Daydreamer team will be on the other end, ready for you to record everything you have to say. Owned and operated by Daydreamer Network, Daydreamer Studios continues on the company's mission to empower storytellers of all kinds by making podcasting accessible to all. For more information and current promotions, visit daydreamernetwork.com/studios. All right, and now I'm going to take you back in time a little bit to the Indianapolis Zoo when I met one of the genuinely most impressive and authentic humans I've ever gotten to meet through this podcast. Erika literally takes the show over, and she's welcome too. It's amazing. I cannot wait for y'all to hear this. Here is my interview with Erika Allen of the Indianapolis Zoo for Walrus Awareness Week. All right, so Erika, tell me who you are, where we are, and what you do here.
Hi, John. So I'm Erika Allen. I'm a senior marine mammal trainer, and we are at the Indianapolis Zoo, where I work with our dolphins, walrus, sea lions, and gray seals.
Amazing. So all of those animals are incredible, but you said walrus, and that is not a real common zoo animal, is it?
No, it's not. There's actually only 4 facilities in the United States right now that are currently housing walrus, and there's only 14 individual animals.
That's amazing. How many do you guys have here?
We have 2. I consider us really, really lucky that we get to be one of the 4 facilities that house walrus and that I get to be able to care for 2 of them. I've actually cared for 4 total in my career, but we have a couple of really great ones right now.
That is so amazing. I love that so much. And we will come back to them. But first, the animal that I'm most interested in right now is you. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What made you want to become a keeper?
Yeah, I've worked with animals a lot throughout my life. I worked in vet clinics and things like that. I actually was a tech at an equine vet clinic through college. And that kind of led me a little bit into the zoo field. I got a seasonal position at the Milwaukee County Zoo, which is my hometown. And I worked there also as I was finishing college. And I ended up getting a degree in education. So I really enjoy teaching people and talking to people, and I really enjoy animals. So I wanted to find a way to kind of marry those 2 things. And I know that in the field of marine mammals, there's a lot of opportunities for the caretakers of the animals to also engage with the public. There tends to be a lot more interactive type scenarios with marine mammals that would get me really hands-on with the public also. So after I graduated from college, I did an internship at Dolphin Quest in Hawaii.
In
Hawaii, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I got to work with some Atlantic bottlenose dolphins there. And that was my first kind of foray into marine mammals, and I loved it. And really, as part of the internship, they expect you to be engaging with the public. So I felt like I really kind of hit my sweet spot and that this is what I was meant to do. So after that internship was over, I was really lucky to get another internship at the Indianapolis Zoo. And that kind of expanded my marine mammal experience from dolphins into also pinnipeds. And at the time, we also had polar bear in the department. Okay. So I got some carnivore experience there too. And, one thing kind of led to another. I was really fortunate to get a part-time job following that internship, moved into a full-time job, and I've been here and loving it ever since.
That is just amazing. I love that. Since you're so passionate about education, let me ask you, I know that there are some people who think that, marine mammal education is a little bit controversial. How do you feel about that? All right. We'll be back after this quick break.
Check out the new nature podcast that everyone is talking about, Birds of a Feather Talk Together. If you like Radiolab or Planet Earth, you'll love Birds of a Feather Talk Together. Escape from the daily grind into the world of birds. 2 experts and 2 amateurs talk about a different species every week. Recently, we talked about the osprey, burrowing owls, roadrunners, pigeons, giant hummingbirds, house wrens, sandhill cranes, and so many more. We have a lot of fun every week. Learn more about the incredible birds around you and some that you didn't know existed. Birds of a Feather Talk Together. You're going to like these birds. I guarantee it.
I think our stance on that here at the zoo is that we really look to push any kind of conservation message that we can, and getting our local communities involved and learning about our animals. We have an incredible education department here at the zoo. We do lots of camps, all kinds of different programs throughout the year. And it's getting people that might not have otherwise had the opportunity to learn anything about these animals, not as just a chance to learn about them, but to see them and to see it for themselves and to really be inspired and create that connection with an animal that is so special. It's something you can't get from a book. So that's really a huge part of our mission, is to connect and inspire with people. But also we provide a home for a lot of rescued animals, including a lot of our marine mammals were rescues. So I think we're doing a lot of really important work there, as well as the research and everything we can learn from them.
That's amazing. I love it. Very cool. So, all right, we have to go back to the walruses, because this is why I am here. I mean, like I said, also you, but mostly the walruses. So tell me everything about your walruses.
Everything. I don't even know where to begin. Walrus are incredible animals, and there's not really a lot of mention of walrus in like pop culture. Like, I think people just don't even know what to think of when they hear walrus. There's, I Am the Walrus by the Beatles, or the Lewis Carroll poem, The Walrus and the Carpenter, and that's pretty much it. And people don't know anything beyond that. But what I can tell you about walrus is that they are just exceptional animals. Getting a chance to work closely with them, I feel really lucky. But they are from the pinniped order. So that includes seals and sea lions, and they all do have a lot of things in common. But then the walrus is actually kind of its own kind of separation from that, and their Latin binomial is Odobenus rosmaris, which means tooth-walking seahorse.
That's amazing. And how long did you have to practice to be ready for that?
oh no, it's just something that we all know.
Sure.
We can all recite pretty much all of our animals' Latin genus and species right away. But I think that pretty accurately sums up everyone's knowledge of a walrus.
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
They're a tooth-walking seahorse. But I think when people think of walrus, they immediately think of a couple of things. They think of their tusks, probably being one of their most prominent features. They might also think of their whiskers, and they're also going to think of their size. They're pretty big animals. They are marine mammals, so they spend a lot of their time in the water. Walrus are only found in the Arctic. They are not found in the Antarctic. So if you ever see a picture of a walrus and a penguin together, that is wrong.
Fair.
People will say the same thing of polar bears.
Yes.
Polar bears and penguins are also not found in the same place. So they are found in the Arctic. There are debatably three subspecies of the walrus. There's the Pacific and the Atlantic. Of course, they're all just living up in the Arctic Circle there off the Pacific or Atlantic Ocean. And then there is the Laptev Sea, which is by Russia off the Pacific. There is also a type of walrus that lives there, and it's debatable whether that's its own subspecies or whether that's considered part of the Pacific walrus. They do have some morphological differences, the two subspecies. So the Pacific walrus are going to be bigger. They have longer tusks. They have a wider skull than their Atlantic cousins. They also have a divergence in mitochondrial DNA. So they are technically considered two different subspecies. Here at the zoo, we have the Pacific walrus. So I know the most about them because that's what I work with. But I guess just to kind of get more in depth in some of their traits, some of the things we do know about them, when we're talking about something like their tusks. One thing that a lot of people are surprised by is that both the males and the females have tusks. And they are essentially just overgrown canine teeth.
Interesting.
Yeah, they do have other teeth in their mouth. They're smaller. Most of them usually have around 18 teeth total, but they can have up to 30 or so teeth. And those other teeth don't really serve a whole lot of purpose. Their tusks serve a huge purpose. The tooth-walking part of their name comes from using their tusks to haul out onto ice floes. They spend a lot of their time either swimming or hauling out onto ice floes. Occasionally, you will see them hauling out onto land, but that's usually when there aren't any ice floes available. So they prefer to spend their time up on the ice, and they'll use those tusks to haul their giant bodies up onto the ice.
I cannot picture that.
So yeah,
insane.
They do serve a pretty important purpose there. They also will use their tusks in sparring with others, typically males fighting over territory or defending their breeding space, perhaps fighting with another male over a female. So that's pretty much the main purpose of their tusks. And they don't really use any of their teeth for like stabbing or chewing or any kind of eating function because they swallow all their food whole. So that's kind of where their whiskers come in. It's a major tactile function on their face. So walrus has anywhere from 400 to 700 whiskers. We call them vibrissae on the front of their face in 13 to 15 rows. So each one is attached to a muscle and has its own blood supply and nerve endings.
Oh, wow.
So It's like, imagine having hundreds of fingers on the front of your face.
Right, that's amazing.
Yeah. So they're extremely tactile and sensory and located right up near their mouth. So that's going to enable them to be able to find their food and help direct it to their mouth. So what they're mainly going to be eating in the wild is a lot of sedentary bottom-dwelling type of benthic creatures. So mollusks, a lot of bivalves, things like clams is going to make up the majority of their diet, but also worms, sea cucumbers, gastropods, all that fun stuff that lives down on the ocean floor. So they're going to dive down. They're going to feed usually in between like 30 and 100 feet of water. They can dive down to 200 or 300 feet if they need to. And they're going to use all those fingers or vibrissae on the front of their face to kind of sift through the sediment and search for their food. Once they found it, they actually have this incredible suction. And they can just suck it straight into their mouth. And something like a clam that lives in a shell, they can actually suck the meat right out of the shell.
Oh, my gosh.
They don't eat the shell part. They leave that behind. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and they'll typically feed 1 to 2 times a day, and a large adult can eat 3,000 to 6,000 clams in a feeding. Yeah, they're pretty big, so they have to eat a lot in order to maintain that weight.
Okay, so y'all, I'm going to jump in here for a second and tell you that Erika was nice enough to let me meet her walruses, and I got to feed them. And this suction thing cannot be explained easily. It's like a vacuum cleaner. You literally, like, I held a fish out, and they start sucking before it's there, and you can feel it. You can actually feel the suction, and then the second the head of the fish gets near, it's just gone. Just completely gone. And it's, I have fed a lot of animals, and that might have been the most unique feeding experience I've ever had. That was really cool.
It is really cool. What's really cool about it is that it works both ways too. So they suck in, but they can also use it as kind of a hunting mechanism by taking a mouthful of water and blasting it out. So they can direct a jet of water to kind of help clear and move sediment to also help them find like a burrowing clam.
Oh, this is so cool. Walruses are so cool. I'm so excited. I just knew they were big pinup heads. I purposely came in here pretty uneducated about walruses because I wanted you to inform me. And wow, this is amazing. Very cool. So let's take a minute and talk about the whiskers. They feel unlike what you're thinking. Because when you think whiskers, you're thinking almost like a mustache or like a cat's whiskers. But go ahead and describe these little like face fingers.
Yeah, so they're actually quite thick, each individual whisker, and they feel kind of like plastic. They're like a bunch of little plastic tubes on the front of their face. However, they are not hollow. But yeah, they're really, really unique. And like I said, they're super tactile and they're very curious by nature, just gregarious, curious animals. So they're using their whiskers to kind of explore everything. If there's a little piece of something on the ground, they're going to be moving it around with their whiskers. If I'm wearing a rain jacket and they haven't seen that in a while, they're going to rub their whiskers on it and feel it. And that's really how they explore their environment, and they interact with each other by touching with whiskers as well. So yeah, it's just kind of a cool sensory function that, works similar to other animals that have whiskers, like cats, but kind of has been really specially adapted for its own function as well for feeding.
Yeah, they're really... I asked if they were fake when I got to touch them, and I knew they weren't, but literally it felt like Erika had stuck some plastic on the front of her walrus. That's what it felt like. Very unique animal. Very unique. Very cool. So talk to me about vocalizations.
Yeah. They're really vocal animals, probably the most of any pinniped species. We hear our walrus here at the zoo making sounds all the time on their own, just a bunch of random sounds, and we've been able to train them to do some of those sounds like on cue for us. We don't know for sure what a lot of their sounds mean. So there's still a lot of ongoing research into that. But we do have ideas about what some of it means. And a lot of it is for communication, specifically for attracting a mate. So right now, both of our walrus do a sound that we call a roar. And it's just kind of a loud, grunting, growling kind of a sound. And oftentimes they'll do that on their own if they're startled by something, or if they're scared of something, or if they're maybe kind of playing really rough and tumble with each other. And that's a pretty common, I think when people think of what sound does a walrus make, that's probably what they're envisioning is that sound. We also have heard them exhibit, and our current walrus don't do this yet, but our previous walrus did a whistle, which is exactly what it sounds like. They purse their lips and they blow air through it, and it's a very, very high-pitched whistling sound. And that usually is one of the sounds that we see like during the breeding season or when they're trying to attract a female. They can make like knocking type sounds in their throat, different, like we call it a raspberry, like sounds that they make by blowing through their lips. They also can make what's called a bell tone. And this is not actually coming from their vocal cords. It's by air kind of near their pharynx that they can expand. And that's another very common one that we hear for animals that are trying to attract a mate. So, yeah, I mean, they have a huge repertoire of sounds.
It's time for Interrupting John.
Hey, y'all. First of all, thank you to my buddy Taylor Gray for that amazing new stinger for interrupting John. You're going to be hearing lots more of that, I'm sure. And second of all, when I met the walruses with Erika, she had them do some of her vocal behaviors for me so that y'all could hear them. So here are the walruses.
Good boy. He also does a different vocal called a knock. Good. And then he does one that we're calling a raspberry. Good boy.
Amazing. Really, what more is there to say? Walruses are awesome. Okay, back to the interview.
And that's probably one of the favorite things about people that come to visit our walruses. They walk away just going, I didn't even know they could make all those sounds, even just their slurping sounds when they eat their food.
Oh, yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, that was crazy. No, yeah. And I think my favorite thing that you have said so far is when you said that they don't know that one sound yet. Oh, man, I wish y'all could have seen her face because her eyes were so determined. They are clearly going to learn how to make that sound, and you are clearly going to be the one training them to do that. That was
Yes, yeah, we're very excited about it. Anything that we can train that can demonstrate to our guests a natural behavior that we can use to expand upon and talk about these animals is something that we're really excited to be working on and training.
Yeah, I could tell your eyes lit up, and I'm assuming you were smiling, although masks.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, it was a whole demeanor change. It was really hilarious. All right, so let's go away from the overall walrus thing. Tell me about your walruses. Tell me about who we were hanging out with.
We have two absolutely incredible walrus right now at the zoo. They've actually only been with us for about a year.
Okay, so I have to pause for 1 second. I'm sorry. Walrus is plural as well? Is walruses wrong? Because I keep saying walruses.
So you can say it two different ways.
Okay.
You can just say walrus. There's one walrus or there's two walrus. Or you can also say walruses.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, so either of those are acceptable.
Okay.
Walry is not a word.
What about Walren? Come on. There are a lot of good options here. Okay, cool. So thank you for clarifying. So anyway,
Yeah.
You've had them for 1 year, and go ahead.
Yeah, so their names are Ginger and Aku, and they both came to us from SeaWorld in Orlando. Ginger was actually born there, and her dam and sire are still down there, and she was the first successful walrus calf to be born to the team in Orlando. So that was really, really exciting. As you can imagine, with only 14 animals in our nationwide population, every single birth is really celebrated. I mean, by everyone in every facility. It's a huge, huge deal. So when Ginger was born, it was a huge celebration by everybody. And the team down there did a fantastic job helping to care for her and helping to raise her. And it was a first-time mother that had given birth down there as well. And she did a fantastic job. So that was really, really exciting. And right around that same time that Ginger was born, there was a wild-born walrus calf that had stranded himself, and that was Aku. So he was really only probably a couple of weeks old, somehow managed to get himself up onto the stern of a gold mining barge in Alaska off the coast of Nome. His name actually means stern of a boat in the Inuit language because that's where he was found.
Nice.
And he was just a little bag of skin and bones. And so obviously he needed some intervention. Thankfully, there is a facility in Seward, Alaska called the Alaska Sea Life Center. And they're really the only marine mammal response facility in the entire state. So he was quickly sent down there where he could be rehabilitated and get some weight on him, get him healthy again. And they did an incredible job with him. The whole rescue process went really well. And unfortunately for a walrus, even once they're gotten to a healthy point again, there really aren't any options to release them back out into the wild. So to begin with, we didn't know where his family pod was. We didn't know where his mother was. And he would have been still needing to nurse for quite some time. So that poses a huge challenge, and he would not have been able to survive on his own. They're very social animals, and they're always in large groups. And walrus tend to be really easily spooked. So even getting close enough to try to put him with another group would be probably very problematic. So it was determined that he would be better off being raised in one of our facilities. So he was then sent to SeaWorld in Orlando because Ginger was the same age.
Right.
So that was perfect. So they pretty much hit it off immediately. They've been BFFs ever since. They're pretty inseparable, and that ended up working out perfectly. Here at Indianapolis, we do have a past history of taking in rescued orphan walrus calves and raising them up. So when we were kind of looking to shuffle walrus around and look for new homes, I think it was a pretty natural choice that the babies come to Indianapolis. So they were about 2.5 when they came. They are about 3.5 now, and they are just doing fantastic. We love them so much.
Amazing. What's the life expectancy for a walrus in captivity?
So they can live to be up to 40 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So obviously we have access to incredible healthcare. We have incredible veterinary teams. They're being fed just top quality food, and they've got, personal trainers tending to their every need and whim. We like to joke a lot that these animals have, they got better healthcare than I do, and they've really have everything going for them. Experts just tending to their every need. So that obviously helps with something like life expectancy. We have, medicines and things that we have access to that the wild population doesn't. We also can really monitor their environments really closely here. So we're looking at a lot of problems for wild walrus, mostly as it relates to climate change.
Right.
So they're losing a lot of that sea ice that they really rely upon. They're having to haul out on land more. And when they hunt off of the sea ice, it's a moving platform. So every time they go hunt, they're in a new location with lots of food. When they have to haul out on land, you have hundreds, maybe thousands of walrus all competing over the same food source. And so that can deplete the food. It makes them more vulnerable to things like maybe polar bears in the area or human activity in the area. So there are a lot of challenges that they face in the wild, things that we can control for in our environments here. So I think that's another reason why they tend to live long, happy lives.
That's amazing. I love it. So, male, female, gonna play any seductive music and see if any babies decide to come on out?
Well, with Ginger and Aku, they're still quite too young.
Okay.
At only being around 3.5. So the females are going to reach their sexual maturity between 5 and 7, and the males between 7 and 10. However, we don't usually see a lot of breeding for females until they're closer to 10 and males until they're closer to 15.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. So it could be quite some time for these two. But the hope is definitely that within our overall population of 14 walrus, that we do set them up to give them the best opportunities for breeding. So previously we had a female here at Indianapolis that was at breeding age, and she was being housed with a male that was not at breeding age. So that's why we went ahead last year and moved animals around, give her the opportunity to be with a male that was of breeding age who was a proven breeder. And then we were able to take the little kids and kind of raise them up and be a good holding and training facility for them until they become of age as well.
Very cool. That makes a lot of sense. Is it, with such a small population, is there like an SSP and a stud book, or do you not even have to worry about that because you all just know what's going on?
There is a stud book for walrus. Actually, my coworker here at the zoo is a stud book keeper for walrus.
Very cool.
So we have, a lot of resources, talk to each other and, talk about our training and talk about our opportunities that we're going to be giving our animals. We actually also have the Walrus Conservation Consortium, which is a group of individuals from all facilities that hold walrus, as well as some facilities that don't currently hold walrus, but maybe will in the future or have the capability to. And that group has been meeting pretty much annually for the last several years. I've actually been lucky enough to go to Alaska twice, 2 years, to meet with that group. And that was just a really incredible experience to just be surrounded by people who love walrus and talk about, everything and anything we can possibly do to help sustain their wild populations as well as our collection here.
Awesome. Anything else you want to say about the walruses before we move on to some other animals?
I could talk about walrus for how many hours you got? I guess nothing in particular, but I just know that anytime we have a guest come to meet our walrus up close, it is my personal goal that they walk away from the experience saying, walrus is my new favorite animal. And I know everyone is obviously partial to the species that they work with, but they really have just captivated me, and they are just so incredibly smart and so much personality, more personality than one being should be able to have. They make me laugh every single day. They are just really, really incredible animals. So anyone wants a chance to come and learn about them and have them be your new favorite animal, you know who to call.
I love it. So you said that walruses are pinnipeds. And for people that don't know, what is a pinniped?
So pinnipeds are an order of animals that have very similar characteristics. They're all marine mammals, and they all have evolved from land mammals. So with all marine mammals, they have evolved from land mammals, but with pinnipeds in particular, they're also sometimes subgrouped under carnivore. So they have kind of evolved from animals like bears and dogs. And a pinniped basically means fin-footed. So it's kind of describing the shape of their flippers. And they all do have very similar kind of flippers, but what's really unique and interesting is that they all kind of have very different locomotion or how they use those flippers. So a sea lion, for example, we'll take a California sea lion because that's what I work with here at the zoo. They're extremely mobile on land. They're excellent climbers. They can spin around, and they can do a lot of this because they can actually rotate their hip and bring their back flippers underneath their body, enabling them to walk on all fours. Now, the walrus has this same ability. So people think of walrus as just being like huge and blubbery and slow moving. They can be fast.
Oh, wow.
Okay. They can be very fast. They can run as fast as a human on land for short distances.
Oh, I want to see that. That's amazing.
And that's because they also can rotate their hips and bring those flippers underneath their body and kind of walk like they're moving on all fours. Seals, however, don't have that ability. So they pretty much are just blubbering along on their bellies. And that's how they're moving on land. When it comes to swimming, again, they all move pretty differently from one another. So the California sea lion is going to use its bigger front flippers to propel itself through the water and swim, and use those back flippers like a rudder to steer. And the walrus and the seal actually have this in common with how they swim. they use those back flippers and kind of what we call a sculling motion back and forth to propel themselves, and their front flippers to steer. So walrus kind of has something in common with the sea lion and something in common with the seal when it comes to how they move, depending on whether it's in the land or the water. And then there's also smaller subgroupings like eared seals or earless seals. So the California sea lions have small little ears, and the walrus and the seals just have little holes behind their eyes. So no external ear flaps. And that's usually what we use when we're talking to the public about how can you tell the difference between a seal and a sea lion. We're going to look at the shape and size of their flippers. We're going to look at their overall body size, and we're going to look for ears.
All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Hi, this is Kathy Hill from the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. We're all about restoration projects in progress this season on One Lagoon, One Voice. Learn about the great strides the lagoon community is taking to restore and protect the Indian River Lagoon. Each week, we dive deep into discussions with scientists, resource managers, and nonprofit leaders to explore lagoon issues and solutions. From oyster reefs to clam restoration, algae blooms to muck, you'll learn all about the projects we're tackling to bring the Indian River Lagoon back to health. Click the link in the show notes to follow One Lagoon, One Voice, learn about the IRL Council, and explore our unique lagoon.
Yeah, makes sense. So tell me about some of your California sea lions here.
So we actually have a pretty new group of sea lions, relatively new to us. And there are 4 of them, and they came to us also from SeaWorld Orlando. They came at the same time that Aku and Ginger came up last year. And what's funny is they usually have a lot of sea lions born every year, and they tend to theme what their names are.
Okay.
So, they might have a Harry Potter theme one year or a Marvel theme one year. So the ones that came to us, it happened to be a cheese theme. So they're all named after cheeses. Our older male Gordo that we got from them is not necessarily named after a cheese. I'm not sure what the theme was that year. But
you said it's Gordo?
Gordo.
Maybe it's from eating too much cheese?
Hispanic? Yeah, I don't know. But the 3 females were all born the same year. So we have Pepperjack, Colby, and Baby Bill.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The cutest cheese names.
Yeah, they're all pretty precious, and we're falling for them pretty hard. But then they came to us last year, and they joined our family of 3 sea lions that we had already had. And they were actually all rescued animals, the 3 that we had initially had. So we have Holly, Joy, and Ivy. Holly and Ivy were both had been rescued multiple times, and usually after a sea lion strands 2 to 3 times, it's determined that it's not in their best interest to release them again because they're just going to keep stranding over and over for various reasons. So that was the case with them. With Joy, she actually was born in a rescue facility. So her mom had stranded with what's called domoic acid toxicity or domoic acid poisoning, which is becoming more and more common for sea lions on the California coast. It's caused by a red tide or an algal bloom. So we get an increase of that toxin that works its way up the food chain into the sea lions, and it's a neurotoxin. So it's really, really detrimental for them. So her mom was struggling with that, and then she was born in the facility, so she had to be hand-raised. For an animal that's hand-raised, again, releasing is not a great option.
Sure.
So she was sent to us as well. And all of those sea lions are joined by 2 gray seals that were born at Brookfield Zoo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and they're
Very
actually
cool.
brothers, and
Okay.
their names are Ziggy and Scooter.
Amazing. How smart are all of these pinnipeds?
Insanely smart. They're really, really intelligent. They're really good at picking up on cues in their environment and cues from their trainers, even when it's something that we're not trying to do intentionally. So we have to be really careful that everything we're doing around them is very intentional, has a purpose, has a reason, so that we're shaping the right kind of behaviors that we want.
Sure.
So they do pick up on things just crazy fast, which can work for you or against you. But it's really important for us to work on a lot of basic husbandry things. So we want them to be able to move from one space to another. We want them to be able to move away from other animals and towards other animals. And once they have those kind of basics down, sitting nicely and calmly, eating well from us, those sorts of things, then we'll move on to medical behaviors. So that's been a huge priority for us right now, especially with the walrus, because they're going to get to be really big. And we want to make sure that they're comfortable and cooperative when it comes to their own health care. So from basic things like checking out their eyes, their ears, their nose, their mouth, all the way up to more advanced things like being able to take x-rays, ultrasound them, collect blood, things like that. We want it all to be done just very stress-free and voluntarily. So that's going to be what we spend a lot of our time working on. And what really helps that to be successful is having a great relationship with them. So we're with them all the time, multiple sessions a day, just working on keeping things positive, having a great relationship so that there is a level of trust established.
Makes sense. And speaking of walruses, we're going right back to it because, yeah, now that I've met them, I'm in love. You're absolutely right. Speaking of the healthcare stuff, how big are they now and how big do you expect them to get?
So right now, I still call them babies.
That's some big babies.
Yeah, they're pretty big. They're usually around 100, 150 pounds at birth. So that's a really big baby.
Wow.
But they gain weight really quickly, usually a few pounds a day. And now at 3.5, Ginger is over 800 pounds and Aku is over 900 pounds.
You know, I'm not going to lie. They wear it well. I did not think they were that big.
Yeah, they wear it well, don't they?
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Very cool. And
Yeah.
how big will they get? Or, I mean, I know you don't know these specifics, but, how big do walruses get?
Yeah, so the males, so they're sexually dimorphic, so the males are going to be bigger than the females at their full-grown size. So males usually will get to be between 3,000 to 4,000 pounds, and the females between 1,000 to 2,500 pounds.
Y'all, my eyes just got so big. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
to see
a
like a
walrus.
full-grown adult male is incredibly impressive, especially considering their tusks can get to be up to 3 feet long and really wide and thick. Like, it's really, really impressive. They have massive skulls, huge, thick necks that are specifically built for sparring with other males. So it's crazy. We think Aku is already he's a big boy. He's big boned. I think he's going to be on the bigger side of that range.
Wow. And despite that fact, they are free contact.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's
And you don't feel intimidated with them at all, do you?
No. However, we respect
Of course.
that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, we do have a lot of safety protocols when we work with the walrus. So how we do it at Indianapolis is whenever we're going to enter their space, we start with them at a distance. So we start pretty much every session by sending them away to the water. And then we go out onto their space and we call them up to us. They have an assigned seating order. So they know where they need to be sitting to start a session. And it's something that, we take pride in our ability to work very closely with them. And it's something that we work really hard on all the time. So focusing on those little manners and that personal bubble and things like that are really important, like I said, because they're going to get to be really, really big. So we want to have that established when they're little.
Right.
And maintain that. But we also have rules like we never walk between the walrus and the water. So I mentioned before they get really easily spooked and their immediate reaction is go to the water. Mm-hmm. They feel safest in the water. They can maneuver better in the water. So that's where they want to be if they feel like there's any threat. So if I happen to be walking between them and the water and something spooked them, I'm a pancake. I have no chance. They're just going to go and it doesn't matter who's in their way and there's nothing I can do to stop them. So we've made that a safety rule that we're very careful about how we move around them. We also have staff here that have worked with walrus for many, many years. So we understand their behavior. We know what their potential precursors are. We can read that behavior really well. And we have a really good training program for new staff as well to make sure that everyone is completely comfortable and aware and making smart decisions when working with them.
Makes sense. And tell me about Aku's tusk.
About his tusk?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the ways we can tell our two walrus apart right now is one of them is by looking at their tusks. So Ginger's tusks are actually quite a bit longer than Aku's. They're about, I want to say, maybe around 10 or 11 centimeters right now. And his are maybe only around 5 or 6. So it's pretty noticeable when you see them that hers are longer. Another thing people are going to notice right away is that Aku actually has like a silver colored cap on one of his tusks. The goal is to have a cap on both of his tusks. But right now we only have it on one tusk. And so one behavior that Aku has learned is kind of rubbing his tusks on things. And that can potentially wear down the tusk. It could cause a crack, a chip that could potentially lead to an infection. So because that tooth is so massive, it has a really, really deep root. So the root of that tooth goes essentially right up next to the animal's brain.
Oh, wow.
So an infection in the tooth could be really big problem.
Right.
So we go out of our way to make sure we take care of all of their dental needs. And one of those things is putting a cap on the tooth, to help protect it. So all it is essentially is a crown, like a person would have placed on their tooth. And we've been able to do this through training with both Ginger and Aku. So they're trained to be able to hold still while we take a mold or an impression of their tusk. And it usually takes about a minute or so. And then from that, we send it off to a special zoo dentist that helps to create kind of a mold of what that tusk looks like. And off of that mold, they can then create the cap. So cap is made of titanium. It's a really strong metal. It's able to withstand a lot of wear and tear, like the Walrus put on it. Once the cap is done, it comes back to us. And then we use like a special cement type glue and stick it right on.
Seriously.
Yep.
So that's not like, that wasn't some crazy surgery or something. That's just...
Nope. It's all done through training. And
I'm so impressed.
They've been fantastic for it. Yeah. So that's another thing. There's a few things that we really work on when they're little. And that's one of them because it's really important.
All right. We'll be back after this quick break.
Animals are taking center stage in research, not just as objects for human benefit, but as beings with rich histories and geographies. Join me, Claudia Herzenfelder, on the Animal Turn podcast as I interview leading scholars about emerging ideas and concepts in animal studies. Each season delves into a unique theme, revealing how concepts intertwine or diverge, and this kind of discussion encourages a deeper reflection about animals and their broader contexts. So far, the podcast has considered themes as wide-ranging as law, politics, sound, the urban, and biosecurity. If you are interested in animals and unpacking the ways we know them, find the Animal Turn podcast wherever you listen.
Wow. You get that y'all are amazing, right? You get that. That's really cool. What an amazing team.
I do tell people when they're visiting just to try to help them get an idea like, this walrus isn't just doing everything I want just because they're not like a robot. Like, they could leave if they want. They could go do whatever. So a lot of that has to do with the relationship that we've built with them. But also I'll try to compare it to people like, could you take your cat to the vet right now? And would they hold still without anyone holding them down for a shot? Probably not. But with the walrus, that's going to be 4,000 pounds. Holding them down is not an option. Now, at 900 pounds, holding them down is not an option. And that's not really the route we'd want to go anyways. We want everything to just be really calm and for them to really be choosing to participate. So that is a major priority for us.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that is so cool. That's so neat. When you told me about it and when I saw the filling, the cap, I definitely thought it was a like knockout surgery, kind of thing. Great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, y'all should be very proud of yourselves.
Thank you.
Very cool. So are there any other animals that you want to talk about at the Indianapolis Zoo?
I do also work with the dolphins. So we have a group of Atlantic bottlenose dolphins here at the zoo, and they are incredible in their own right. Again, they all have their own unique personalities. We do a lot of presentations and guest interactions with them. So it's great for people to get the opportunity to get up close to them and learn a lot about them. One of my favorite things about them is as a part of our dolphin presentation, we use that opportunity to talk with our zoo visitors about conservation. And we have specifically chosen to talk about plastics, single-use plastics, and what people can do to help reduce their reliance on single-use plastics. So we've teamed up with the Nature Conservancy, and we have a lot of really cool videos that we use during the presentation to help spread awareness and share that message, to really show people that it does have a big impact. And especially being here in Indianapolis, people think, well, the oceans are like really far away. Like, what can anything I do here really impact a dolphin? Like, I don't understand, or a walrus for that matter.
Right.
So being able to share stories about families in Indianapolis, what they've already chosen to do, the steps they've already taken, to kind of provide examples for people, but also to inspire them. Like, these dolphins are awesome. I care so much about them. Like, how can I help them? Well, you can go home and you can try to change these certain things about your life, or you can talk to your friends and family about making these changes in your life. And so that's always really satisfying to me, to be a part of those presentations and to feel like I really am making a difference.
Do you want to take a minute to tell us about some of the dolphins?
Sure. We have a pretty wide variety of dolphins with a lot of different backgrounds. We have some dolphins that have been here pretty much since the zoo opened in 1988.
Wow.
And then we have quite a few dolphins that were also born here over the years. We also have a dolphin that was rescued. And we have a few dolphins that have come to us in recent years from marine land in Florida. So kind of a hodgepodge, but it's come together really well to form a nice little pod or family. It's really been fun watching, especially as we have some younger dolphins kind of growing up and figuring out where they fit into the family. Dolphins are really, really social animals, not unlike walrus, but within their pods, they establish a hierarchy. So that's one thing that's also really cool, to just observe when we're not necessarily feeding them or training them, but just to sit and watch and see how they've kind of established that hierarchy within their own pod, and to see how it changes at times as the dolphins are growing.
Sure. And are they all Atlantic bottlenose?
They are.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Any particular individuals that you may want to chat about for a minute? Do you have a favorite dolphin? They can't hear you through the door, I promise. Do you have a favorite dolphin?
I think a lot of people would say that they don't necessarily have a favorite, but I don't think it's wrong to say you do either. I think in a lot of ways, it's like I have a lot of friends, but I have certain friends that I really just connect to better than others. So as much as we love all of them, they're different, just like we're different. So some of our personalities just mesh a little bit better. One dolphin that I've had the pleasure of working with for my entire career here, who's been here for a very long time, is a female. Her name is China, and she tends to be the most stubborn of the group. She likes to do things her way, which I thought was a really kind of a unique, fun challenge. Like, okay, how can I find ways to let her do it her way, but also be cooperative? And so I worked very closely with her over the past couple of years on a lot of her medical type behaviors and things. And it's been really, really rewarding to see an animal go from a little bit standoffish to really developing that trust in you. So that's been really great working with her. But it's also just been awesome to see some of the dolphins that I literally saw being born, to now see them being, pushing into their teenage adult years and finding their way in the pod and really growing and developing, and just being able to be a part of that whole process is really special too. And Taz, our little rescue that came shortly after I started, to see him going from needing so much help to being, accepted now into his dolphin family. So it's been really just great.
Very, very cool. All right. So I like to open up the floor now. Are there any conservation organizations you'd like to give props to, or any message you'd like to give directly to my listeners? Or the floor is yours.
I guess I don't have like a specific organization per se, but like a facility like the Alaska Sea Life Center that has been able to do many rescues and rehabilitations over the years, not just for walrus, but for a variety of seal species and tons of birds and stellar sea lions. They have an incredible program there. So any kind of support, they have social media, people want to kind of reach out and learn more about what they're doing. They're doing really incredible things. But I think also another thing that people don't realize is that zoos in general, but particularly the Indianapolis Zoo, we have a research committee here. And so we're really committed to doing research, to learning more about these animals. And a lot of that directly relates to conservation of those species. So one project that we were really lucky to do, we collaborated with a university on, was we actually worked with the dolphins, but also the walrus on auditory testing.
Okay.
So we don't know a lot about how an animal like the walrus hears, what frequencies they can hear at, and what frequencies are perhaps damaging to their ears. So we were able to train our 2 previous walrus, Aurora and Puckuk, for this biological audiogram, basically. So it involved kind of holding probes on their head and playing sounds into their ears. And it wasn't invasive, but it did require a lot of patience on their part. And we did it over the course of months, various different testings of all different frequencies. And what they're doing is they're looking for like a brain response to the different sounds. So that's different from a behavioral study where it would be like, okay, if you hear the sound, push the button.
Right.
This is no action required on their part. We're just literally looking at their brain activity to determine whether they registered that sound or not.
Very cool.
So that was pretty groundbreaking. Not something that's really been done with walrus before. So we were really excited to be a part of that. But the coolest part of that is the information that they're able to obtain from that can directly impact wild populations. So we can say something at this frequency could be damaging and interfere with their ability to hunt or communicate or migrate or whatever the case may be. And that could help institute a policy change to help reduce maybe drilling in the Arctic or shipping routes through walrus areas or whatever the case may be. We're using science, and that science is backed by research that's being done right here in Indianapolis. So we're really, really proud of that. And that really is, one of the more important parts of my job, I think, being able to make that connection with our public,
right,
and to back up the science that is going to help these animals.
That's so awesome. And then you know what's coming. It's time for the Rossifari poop story. So let me hear it.
All right. Well, one of the better things about working with marine mammals, particularly dolphins and walrus, is that they do all of that business in the water for the most part. So there isn't usually a ton of cleanup involved. The seals and sea lions are a little bit different. Walrus have a messy day on occasion. But another thing I think a lot of people don't realize is that as a part of my job, I have to scuba dive regularly to clean. So that involves cleaning everything that might be yucky in all of their pools, and we do that on a regular basis. So there's definitely been a few scuba stories of just... Well, one that I can think of in particular, back when we had a polar bear, not only was her pool messy, but she was also molting or shedding. So there was just hair everywhere in the pool. And a coworker and I had to dive, and it was during our Christmas season. So we have a later shift during our Christmas season, and it gets dark so early that we were diving pretty much in the dark with just a few lights. And there was just so much hair and poop and everything. It was disgusting. We could not get in the shower quick enough after that dive. So yeah, mostly we stay clean, but sometimes diving gets a little messy.
That's fair. Very cool. All right, y'all. Well, I hope you enjoyed that the second time as much as I did the first time, the second time, and every time that I listened to it. Erika's awesome. The walruses were incredible, or the walrus were incredible. I still struggle with pluralizing it like that. Whatever. Anyway, the Indianapolis Zoo is always an amazing place to go, and they treat me so well. And I'm so thankful that they just exist and support the pod, and it's all wonderful. And life is good, my friends. Life is good, especially this Walrus Awareness Week. You can check out the Indianapolis Zoo by going to indianapoliszoo.org or on social media at Indianapolis Zoo. And I want to say a special note of thanks to my Red Panda level patron, Laura Shank. And hey, friends, quick reminder, Walrus Awareness Week backwards is Q Senarawa Surlaw. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Vesley Gross. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.